How about a romantic comedy with a twist of horror and mixed with black comedy? Well, that's what we're gonna review today in Obsession. Welcome to RevivalFlix, where we try to find some old films, some classic films, and watch them again with today's lenses, and maybe get something else out of it. But today's actually film isn't a classic one yet. Probably will be at some point. But here in this channel we also review new movies and especially weird ones. So this one would I guess it would fall into that bucket, weird ones. And also already anticipate that this film actually outgrossed The Exorcist, which was the the most I would say the horror film that made the most revenue until today. Actually, not anymore because this one outgrossed already. But there's a catch to it. I'm gonna explain a bit better how that works. Anyway, let's get into it. As usual, we start by the basic data. So this film was actually released officially in 2025, but it actually, I think in the theaters it was 2026. So I think let's settle on 2026 as the release date. But anyway, in IMDb, which is my main source for consulting about films, ratings, and filmographies from the directors and so on, it has a 7.9 as a rating, which is extremely high for any type of movie, any type of genre. So that was already kind of, setting my expectations high. I must say, from all the hype that I heard about this film and so on, my expectations were pretty high. So you're also already aware about the budget of this film. It was reportedly around 550,000, and it made a revenue worldwide at almost half a billion. That's very, very impressive. So it's up to date, the most in any genre, also the most lucrative film ever made. Probably. Let's see if anyone has another information about that. Maybe the Blair Witch Projects or something of a kind. But this one is really impressive. Now to again mentioning The Exorcist, right? That it kind of like made more revenue worldwide as The Exorcist. Yes, it did. However, we need to also account for inflation and whatever. So I did a rough estimate. I mean, I didn't do it, of course. GPT did it for me. Anyway, a rough estimate of how much the 400 something million that The Exorcist did at the time, or throughout its whole period of existence. So it's reportedly done like 430 or 450 or 440 million, and then if we calculate this to today's, discounting inflation and whatever, or taking into account inflation and whatever, it would be like somewhere between 2.8 and 3.2 billion dollars. That's so impressive. I mean, for anyone that kind of follows, what's a very successful film, do these days, like hitting $1 billion mark is like phenomenal. Not many movies hit that. We're probably going to have Spider-Man, the new Spider-Man movie, hitting that, maybe even doubling that, 2 billion maybe. But probably also The Odyssey, which I also reviewed in my channel if you're interested in. I'll leave maybe a link to it in this in the description. But anyway, it's probably also gonna hit $1 billion, but it's really like an impressive figure, I would say. Anyway, moving on. Other distinct and also curious notes about this film. So the director, Curry Barker. So it seems that it's kind of, he does like this, maybe he does this partnership, I think, with I wasn't aware of them, but anyway, with Cooper Tomlinson, I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing it correctly. But anyway, the bottom line is that they are actually, they come from the internet world, you know. So they emerged from the internet, like very popular YouTube channels and whatever. They already kind of experimented with, like producing a full movie, also low budget. I'm probably gonna see it also. I'm not even going to. So Curry Barker, he actually wrote and directed this film. So I also noticed, probably also in his YouTube channel, a bunch of shorts, you know. And then there was this film that I actually was interested in watching. So Milk and Cereal, 2024, 6.6 as the rating. I'm going to watch it, and if it's any good, for sure I'm going to post a review about it. So again, there's like this new, I would say this new, not trend exactly, but this new batch of directors that are coming in from the internet, which is, I think is healthy for the industry. Especially that they come with a like a modern language and a modern, I would say, aesthetics even. So another one that was a big hit, that it wasn't in a similar, not a similar style, but a similar condition, right? It's a movie called Backrooms. So it's directed by Kane Parsons from 2026, this year. 6.8 as a rating in IMDb, which I consider extremely high. we gotta take into account that it's a public rating, thousands of people and so on. The plot does seems to be amazing. $10 million budget and 390 revenue worldwide up until now. So yeah, it's I'm very curious about this one also. These two are probably in the top of the list in the coming days to watch it. Anyway, moving on. So we have also some actors. Some are unexperienced, other not so unexperienced. So we have Michael Johnston, which I would say that I would put him in a somewhat experienced actor, because he did like a bunch of voices and so on, including gaming. He was the main character from the film. Then we had Inde Navarrette. Probably that's not how you pronounce it, but anyway, she was for sure the highlight of this film. She was really, really something, because in horror films in general, I'm gonna also talk more about this, but normally the credit is more like in the director, the editing, the sound effects and so on, like the technical part. So I'm not sure what kind of weight that had, what kind of impact the directing had on her performance, but it was really something. It was really something. Even if it had that big an impact, the quality that she delivered was jaw-dropping for sure, to say the least. And actually, I looked at some of the awards that the film was nominated for, and even won some of them, and a couple of like small time awards, of course, but a couple of them it did show Inde Navarrette as a best performance. So I thought it was cool and well deserved. So I also took a peek at her filmography and so on. So I noticed that she played in Superman and Lois, which was highly rated. I even wasn't aware of this TV series, but anyway, from 2021 to 2024, 7.8 as a rating, and a bunch of shorts and so on. And actually, they were not the films that she had participated in, not so well rated, but anyway. Again, she's not a very she doesn't have like a very extensive career yet, but I think this could be the turning point for her, for sure. Then we had Cooper Tomlinson, which I mentioned earlier, that he does the partnership with it seems so that way. I'm really not familiar with their story, but anyway, from briefly researching, so he was also, or he helped the production with Milk and Cereal, which I'm gonna watch, a bunch of TV series that he participated in, And well, he's not so inexperienced like that because he did. The list wasn't extensive, but it wasn't also kind of like short. I've seen like, especially like independent films. Actors. The list is kind of short. His wasn't exactly short. Then we had Megan Lawless, which played a very good part also in the film. She's beautiful. And then I would also put this other actress in the highlight category, but I mean, it was really a small part that she played in, but for me, it was such as an impactful part, which is Haley Fitzgerald. So I loved the character that she played. I think she delivered the correct tone with it. And then I, of course, stalked in the filmography and so on. It seems that she's a dancer and a choreographer, so I thought that was actually very dynamic, right? I'm gonna talk more about her character in the spoiler section, but that's later. So just for the ones that are not like familiar with how this works, so normally I do the review without any spoilers and so on, and then I leave a very short part till the end for the spoiler section where maybe comment something very specific about something and so on. But I'm gonna be very explicit when that comes up, so you guys have enough time to drop off if you guys need to, for sure, because I hate spoilers. I hate it so much that I sometimes even like watch the film. If I'm too anxious to watch it, I watch the film like in the first day that it comes out, so I have no chance of like watching a spoilers, like by mistake or by accident or something of the kind. Then there was also like just a very short note about another actor that also participated in the film, which is Andy Richter. It seems that he was the most experienced actor in the crew, and it seems that he acted like a long time like a sidekick of Conan O'Brien. I mean, his face is familiar, but I really wasn't like aware of like his career and what other films or productions that he had participated in. But now let's get into the review about the film itself. So I read that Christopher Nolan endorsed this film, so I guess that's off to a good start. So as I mentioned right at the beginning, I had really high expectations for this film. And I'm glad to say that it surpassed my expectations. It really became one of my favorite films that I watched this year. I can say this safely without a doubt, and I watched a few good movies actually. I'm catching up and whatever, so I'm watching a lot of already I would say films that are critically acclaimed and so on. So I watched a lot of good films this year. This one is for sure, if not top three, at least top three. Anyway, I played around, like in the beginning, just to catch the attention, saying, oh, it's a romantic comedy with maybe a twist of horror and whatever. It's not that all misleading. You can see it as a I would say even more of a black comedy, a black romantic comedy. If that's there exists such a genre. But I would say that it's more of a black comedy than a horror film per se. I would say even that like the hard horror, it's like more towards the end. Towards the end, it becomes really nasty. This is not a spoiler. It's just like actually maybe luring in people that are normally not into horror films so much. I would say that you should give this one a chance. It's different. It's something different here. But anyway, towards the end, there's it really becomes like a good horror film, and then things are become crazy, and the ending is kind of dark actually. But along the ride, up until that moment, you could actually laugh if you like, of course, like black comedy and stuff. Not everyone likes them, but I loved. It's like one of my favorite genres, and I enjoyed so much this film. At some parts, I felt like guilty laughing at it, And this is one of the films that I actually regret not watching this in the theaters. I would love to see the audience's reactions, to some of the scenes. Some of the scenes were really awkward. They were well built, well thought about, well planned. Again, the on horror films in general, they are very well edited. I mean, a good horror film, right? They're very well edited. So this one was very, very well edited. I mean, it wasn't like something like phenomenal. It was just like a solid editing, along also with sound editing, which, I mean, again, it's a low budget film. So I thought they were very creative with what they could do with the sound, maybe, I cannot give a spoiler here, but it's like simple techniques or simple actions, that kind of set like, I would say a trademark, for this film. This film is going to be remembered by some details, very, very well thought about. So at certain scenes you could see, also you could feel, like kind of like uncomfortable and awkward, as I mentioned before. And the director actually, it took like 20 minutes of the first part of the film, like playing and stuff and presenting the characters as most of the, I would say the traditional films do, right? The old school fundamentals, from storytelling and so on. So I thought that this was actually interesting because it mixed, like the solid fundamentals of like starting slowly. It's not exactly slow because it plays around a bit and so on, but it didn't start like right off the bat, like craziness happening and whatever. It kind of like put you in the atmosphere first, and then slowly interestingly but slowly presented, like a series of situations which became more and more absurd and so on. So it mixed the solid fundamentals with a new language from the internet, with dialogue, modern dialogues, which are not like theatrical, they're not like Hollywood-esque, dialogues. They're really like, people saying stuff, like in on top of each other and whatever. I thought that modernity, mixed very well with the traditional storytelling fundamentals. These guys are actually, I would say that they are actually they're culturally probably right in the movie business. Like watched a bunch of movies like Tarantino. He didn't go to film school, probably studied a lot of film, like real filmmaking, but his initial school was like watching films, and I think these guys did the same, like watching a bunch of films with critical thinking and, taking notes and studying really afterwards and whatever. This is the kind of vibe that I got from these directors, right? From this director specifically. I liked it very much, very much. And then we had like a couple of moments where you really get tense. The story is kind of simple. But I thought it was like very well done, and the rhythm, it didn't lose. It was, I think, the timing, everything there was perfect. And I think it's a well-deserved hype. It's justified. The hype is justified. I would totally recommend this film. Especially for people that are into, like horror films in general, black comedy. It's like a must for sure. This genre is not so well explored anymore. I mean, we used to have a lot of black comedy releases, more often. we had kind of like a pause on this. I don't know why exactly. And yeah, I mean, there are some parts that are kind of like cruel even. But again, if you're into horror films, watch it. If you're into black comedy, watch it. If you don't like at all this type of categories, I don't think this film is for you, especially when it gets, kind of cruel. But other than that, yeah, it's one of the best films I watched this year, no doubt about it. And let's go to the spoiler section. So give you guys maybe a quick 10 seconds there for you all to drop off if you need to, and we'll get into it. So now for the spoiling section. So the film starts, like within that 20 minutes, I was, mentioning that it plays around a bit and whatever, but it also drops like a kind of like I would say cruel, maybe a cruel a scene, which is the dead cat, right, from the main character. So I think that was actually like to set, like expectations for the audience. Like, okay, so we played around a bit and so on, but hey, this is still a horror film, so prepare yourself, right? So I thought that was like also it gave like a pretext, like further on, for what the main character was going to interact with and how it would, like mash in, like with the craziness and so on. But anyway, I thought that it was well thought about, how it dropped, like the animal cruelty, and it was like a risky. I would say a risky decision, because a lot of people, especially nowadays, are very very sensitive, like to animal. Like I have friends, that can't stand, like watch any films that any animal die. It can be any animal. It dies an animal, she immediately like freaks out and shuts off the film. I know that this happens a lot more often than we're aware of. But anyway. So that happens a lot, like right in the beginning. Also another scene, right, that also happens, and I mentioned earlier, which with the actress Haley Fitzgerald, which she plays Viola, right? So Viola is kind of like this character. I loved how they built this character, because it's kind of like this character which is really like, like cool, in a store, with I would say like a store, like that has those mystical stuff, whatever, so but she's like, like she's not, if when you read the plot, you imagine that this story is going to have like this special magical person there, or oracle or whatever, but not in this film. This film is like just, like a person there that is like working, and it's explaining a lot of stuff. And the curious part is that everything that she's explaining and responding to the person, to the main character, is actually basically what's going to happen in the film, or everything that is going to happen, with related to that purchase that he's making. So I thought that it was so casual, how they build all of that. Basically a spoiler already, right? Like as if nothing was going on, but also at times she would, like say exactly the reverse, like just to leave everything, like hanging or uncertain and so on. I thought that was so well crafted. It was really amazing. One of my favorite. I mean, there are like 3 favorite scenes in this film. This one, I would say, the one, of course, that a lot of people are referencing to, which is the brick. I already heard that there's even a Wikipedia mentioning about it. I had a colleague at work. She's not into horror films, but she said, "Oh, maybe this one I'm gonna watch," and so on. But I'm already aware of this brick scene or whatever. And yeah, that brick scene is when the film starts to become nasty. And from there on is like hard horror. So I think it catches, like both audiences, the black comedy audience and the hard horror audience, so that was a good mix. And also yeah, there was also like another impactful scene, which is when the main, yeah, okay, the other main character, which is played by Inde Navarrette, right? Which she's the one that actually is, like all of the craziness in the story and so on. So there's a part where she's in the bedroom, and that part is also very well, I would say, scripted. It was very well scripted because I was having no idea what was happening there, and it actually it kind of frightens you, a bit. It was very very well done. This film is very well done, and also she's also responsible for like the transition, right? There's a transition in the movie where it becomes, this craziness and so on, and the way that she she managed, like to play these both totally different characters in the film, like one before the craziness and the other one, like after the craziness. You gotta give credits to her. You gotta give her props because it was very well. The cut, the cut over was very well observed. So yeah, so this is what I had to mention, about the film. Also, reminding everyone that one of the reasons that I do this podcast, not only like to research more about the stuff that I watch, also remind about classic films that we should watch, and maybe other ones that we should rewatch or reinterpret them. Sometimes it happened this to me. I watched like maybe a movie decades ago and so on, and then I watch it again today, and maybe I have a total different understanding about it, and I enjoy it even more, or maybe not. Maybe I enjoy it less, but then I won't review it here for sure. Anyway, I'm also kind of like trying to inspire like other people to also build their own channel. It's not that hard. You just you just take some notes about some things that you're gonna say, and suggest us other films to watch, and your perspectives about it and so on, and maybe we'll give it a try. Drop a comment here, maybe if you have like a good suggestion, and yeah, see you in the next one.